Major vote happening later today in Washington, D.C. Now, you can focus, one, on the actual legislation itself. It's horrible. The For the People Act, this idea of basically it's a federal takeover, congressional takeover of the election process.
I've never seen a more dangerous and horrible piece of proposed legislation than this bill that's coming before the Senate. It is, in fact, in my opinion, a constitutional crisis in the making. It's a violation of Article 1, Section 4 of the Constitution. And what it amounts to, Jordan, is a desperate attempt by the Democrats to remain in power.
Would this affect the Electoral College at all? I mean, it's on its face they're not changing the Electoral College, but they are changing, would like to change redistricting, which does change those numbers. So she's right. It actually gets at the bigger issue too, which is how redistricting is done after we take a census and figure out, who loses seats, who gains seats, and then also how those are distributed throughout the state.
Everything from how voters are registered to how they go to the polls to when they go to the polls to how those votes are tabulated to what they have to show when they go into a polling place to demonstrate they are, in fact, a legal voter. All of those mechanisms would move to the federal government, Jordan. So, of course, indirectly, they would have an impact on the Electoral College.
Joe Manchin, why I'm voting against the For the People Act. Not only does he talk about why he's going to vote against the For the People Act 2 weeks ago, but he also says he would not support getting rid of the filibuster. Makes it very clear in that op-ed. I mean, the title alone is why I'm voting against the For the People Act. But if you know enough about Joe Manchin's history, you know to read into even that title, he's giving the door to Chuck Schumer and Democrats to say, this is what you need to do for me to vote for the For the People Act.
I'm holding in my hands the first few pages of the bill that's going to be voted on tonight and the last few pages. It's S-2093. We're not waiting on a final version. No matter what Senator Manchin says, he can negotiate whatever he wants and put it in a new piece of legislation. But when he goes to the well of the Senate tonight, he is going to be voting to proceed to not whatever final bill he's talking about. He's going to be voting on S-1, which is now renamed, retitled S-2093. He's going to cast a vote in favor. No matter what he tells his constituents, that's what is on the floor of the Senate tonight.
The big issue is, in that vote, do they get to 50? Do they get Joe Manchin, the Democrat from West Virginia, who said he would never vote for this, said he would never vote to change the filibuster? Because if they do, yes, they want to advance their legislation to show they're unified. But second, they then get to force the debate on a filibuster change.
If he represents the people of West Virginia, which is a solidly red state, went solidly for President Trump, then he should be doing what his people want him to do. He's not doing that. He did that on the April op-ed in the Washington Post and said it again after that. There is no circumstance in which I will vote to eliminate or weaken the filibuster. And then he's already shifted on that, too, in subsequent conversations in which he has said, well, maybe it's 55, maybe it's 50, maybe I'll change it. This is not right. You got to be consistent when you're in politics.
April 7th, this is in the Washington Post by Joe Manchin, an op-ed. Quote, the filibuster is a critical tool to protecting the input in our democratic form of government. That is why I've said it before and will say it again to remove any shred of doubt. There is no circumstance in which I will vote to eliminate or weaken the filibuster. So in that op-ed in April, he was trying. The point of that was to say, don't try to get me to be the guy who says, well, maybe we'll go back to a standing filibuster. Maybe we'll take the number from 60 to 55.
Took him 10 days to walk away from what he wrote in the op-ed on the bill. How many days will it take him to walk away from the filibuster? As you suggest, Jordan, he's really already begun that walk away. The question is, how fast will he continue it and how far will that walk away go?
The purpose of the filibuster rule is so that when major changes in America, major pieces of legislation come before this deliberative body, that it ensures that there has to be bipartisanship. That on major things, it simply cannot be a simple majority vote. Nothing as consequential as what they're proposing in this inaptly named the For the People Act. Nothing that major should be done on a party line vote.
The filibuster is an important tool to stop legislation in the Senate, the greatest legislative body in the world, that ought not to proceed. And you're doing away with hundreds of years of history here. And the Democrats use it too. They may say, oh, it's terrible, it's a horrible thing, but they use it too, just like the Republicans do.
This is why you've got to balance these two issues. This legislation to them is so important. They think that basically you put this in, they can't lose the elections. They will not lose races. They will win more races. They will do better nationally if the federal government is in control of the election process. So is that worth the bigger risk of long-term potentially empowering Republicans and the opposition party and making it easier for them to put forward legislation? But is this such a big takeover of the process that it's worth taking that risk?